So, Stephanie, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We were just chatting before the call, and I'm telling you, I think this is going to be a big impact for a lot of our listeners. We talk. I think not. I want to say on the lower level, but we talk a lot of parts and pieces on how to do things and action steps. But like we were just saying before the call, I don't think enough people in our industry pay attention to the after effects, or we're doing it because we're in the process, but we're not thinking about why we're doing it. Like, what's the end game, what's the outcome? And you're here to talk about, or you've experienced early retirement, right, and wealth creation, and now you're a wealth educator, right? So I think that's going to be a fun piece that we can add to our valuable pool of information today.
Oh, great. I'm excited
So
to talk.
absolutely. So maybe give us a little bit of background and, kind of talk about Erbe Wealth. You're the CEO of Erbe Wealth. And I just learned that that's a German. Say it again. It's a German.
It's the German word for legacy. It's sort of a nod to my dad, who he kind of passed away pretty suddenly about 15 years ago. And I always like the word legacy because I'm about third generation entrepreneur. And so I felt that was a nod to my dad. So I like that word. I want other people to create legacies in their own lives, and that's kind of my
Absolutely.
right now.
Well, that's why we call it the legacy blueprint. And
Yeah.
so I love it. I'm sorry to hear about your dad, but I think that obviously you're creating massive impact and you're about to leave a legacy. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. I quit my W-2 job in 2006 and became an insurance agent. And I always loved real estate. So all along, I was sort of investing in real estate as I went. My friends and some of my colleagues approached me, as I became more successful at that, to try to be involved in some of my investment deals over time. And it just sort of grew to where, in 2016, I started doing syndicated deals. And that just, all that means is we're buying larger pieces of real estate and having, anywhere from 10 to 100 investors, depending on the size of the property that come in. And I dealt mostly with the investors, and they're wealthy. And I learned a lot from them. And that sort of, for me, like you were saying, is just kind of a mindset change that something clicked one day. I think that I had a lot of single family homes that I was holding and expecting to hold until I retired, and have a bit of a cash flow, but nothing that you could retire off of. But then I started, going through these wealthy, I would talk to the wealthy investors and kind of learn from them, actually, that they don't let their money sit ever. It's never sitting, it's always working. And so from that, I just realized I had a lot of equity that's just sitting, making nothing, and started to sell those properties and invest the money in our syndication deals. And within 3 years of that mindset change, I'm retired. I sold my insurance agency at the end of last year. So it's pretty powerful
So
to
powerful.
money the way that they do.
I love it. And I'm sitting here smiling because I'm literally in that process, that phase right now. We did 1,000 fix and flips in the last 15 years, and we accumulated a bunch of single families. And about 3 years ago, my partner and I looked at each other and we're like, what are we doing? This is madness. We can't scale this. It's like,
Yeah.
we're both about to have a stroke from a pressure and the movement. And so we moved to syndicated deals. We started doing self-storage development, much bigger scale. And so I
Mhm.
assume you're dealing with accredited investors, right? And you're only dealing with,
Yes.
people that are savvy. And so can you tell the folks what that means?
Well, an accredited investor just means that someone who has a net worth of $1 million or more. If they don't have that, they can qualify based on their income. They just need to If they're a single person, they need to make over 200,000. If they're a married couple, they need to make over 300,000 a year. And then they can get involved. It's pretty much that simple.
Got it. Got it. And so when you do your syndicated deals, I mean, what is generally the threshold for like the barrier of entry for getting into those deals with those accredited investors? And you're not taking $1,000 increments, right?
No, no. All of ours require $100,000 for
Mm.
the minimum investment to get in. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I mean, it's a different conversation, right? Than
Hmm.
maybe your standard fix and flip, or you're trying to get your uncle and your cousin and your sister and brother and everyone's chipping in 25 grand, right? This is a educated, investor. This is not their first deal. What does that conversation look like? How does it change the dynamic from kind of where you were to what you do today?
Well, I think what's happened over time is it's been word of mouth that's spread a lot. So to get the larger investors interested, as well as I work with really the top of the line people who the team, wealthy people are very interested. I was talking to someone about this um, a few days ago, just that the wealthy, they look at putting their money into people, into actual pieces of property that are compelling to them, into business plans. They do those things rather than put their money into the stock market. So if you have a good team that's talented and has a track record, and if you have a compelling piece of property, they, with a good business plan, they're on board with that. So I find it's more, yeah, it's very similar to insurance in the fact that it seems to be very relationship oriented. I get to know people, and then they come in, and then once they're in, we're starting a new deal right now, and I have the same people that have invested with me for the last 5 years. They're investing again, so that's what we like to see, that they're happy.
That's the best, the repeat customer, right?
Yes,
A-
exactly.
And I couldn't agree more. The conversation is just so much different. I was literally just speaking this morning to one of our new investors in a syndicated deal, and he was saying to me that he's done with the stock market. Right? I've had it with traditional investing. I've had it with,
Hmm.
the corporations and the big money controlling my money. I want to know. I want to be comfortable in knowing the team that I'm investing in. He said something to me like, I can't call Elon Musk if I want to. But
Yeah.
you, I can call Joe.
Yes,
I thought
exactly.
interesting, right? So
Yeah.
we're creating that dynamic.
Yeah, I had a interesting conversation with one of my investors who was a mortgage broker for many years. He owned his own mortgage company, and he said, Steph, I've looked at thousands of financial statements from people, and I can tell you that over, I don't know, 20 to 30 years of him doing that business, he said a very small percent, he would say under 5% of those people that became millionaires were millionaires because of their 401k. All the rest of them were millionaires because of a business, because of investing in real estate. And that hit that particular individual really hard, to be like, I'm going to do this different. But most people don't see that
Yeah,
because it's a bit out of the norm.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. Now you talk about when you sent us over your background, your bio. You talk about people unlearning some of those things that they were wired to learn at the beginning. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yes, yeah. So I think the big one is, if you ask a wealthy person what's more important to them, their net worth or their cash flow, they're gonna 1,000% tell you cash flow.
Mm.
Because if I had a nice, and I'm sure you had a nice net worth with all of your single family homes, but you didn't have much of a cash flow going on. If you don't have cash flow and investing in the right things that give you, for us, it's a 8% preferred return. And then when the property sells, it can be anywhere from 20 to 30% annualized rate of return. That's going to kick pretty much anything, but
Yeah,
as far
absolutely.
as, cash flow is king, cash flow is freedom,
Yeah.
absolutely. And another thing is, I guess, accumulation. I think that was my mindset too. I'll just accumulate these properties, or the average person is out there, I'm going to accumulate all this money in my 401k. I won't touch it. It'll sit there, but I'll get it someday. But yet we don't know really important things like what's the tax rate going to be in 20 years?
Hmm.
Will, any of the rules change? What are you invested in? If you ask a lot of people, I talk and sit to people and look at their sheets, they've been in these products for 10, 11 years, and they don't even know what they're invested in or what their fees are. So it's kind of, I'm not a big fan of the 401k.
Yeah, no, obviously, I don't think, I think a lot of us are at the level, that where we're doing syndicated deals and things like that for that purpose, right? It
Mm-hmm.
is, your standard return, and it's mostly tied to stock market, and there's fees, and it goes back to Tony Robbins' book that he did a couple years ago. What's it called? Money Mastering the Game, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
basically, the concept of, people's, normal thought processes: get a great financial planner and financial advisor, invest in them and long term. And but when you start to see all the fees, all the dings, and then, oh, I had a 10% return this year in the stock market, but next year loses 10%. Well, you have to make 20 to get that back, right? Where this is
Yeah.
continuous, predetermined, preferred rates of return, plus that kicker at the end. That's what makes it so much different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And the stock market, yeah, just that hidden tax bill that people are going to be getting at the end of the day. I know a lot of people in this industry want to put people in the self-directed IRAs, and I have some investors that did go that way. But when you learn a bit more about that, it almost, I believe, makes sense to take the money out, face your tax consequences as they come, and just be done with it. Because
Yeah.
when you invest as a self-directed IRA, you, instead of taking those gains as capital gains, you're taking them as ordinary income. Once you can access that money, which is 59 and a half, and there's a big difference between those two tax rates. It's almost double, well, it's double
Yeah.
more to take it as ordinary income.
So you're saying roll it over into a Roth and pay the hit, and take the tax
Mm-hmm.
hit now, and that way when you get to 59 and a half, you never pay taxes again on those draws, right?
That's I don't know how popular that is, but I mean, that's what I see.
Yeah.
There, I think those hidden tax costs that are going to come up. I mean, just look at the way the government is spending. I don't think anyone thinks tax rates are going to go down.
No, no, not at
Yeah.
this, not where we're heading. Not as
Yeah.
quick as we're printing dollar bills. I don't think it's possible.
Right. Exactly.
So Stephanie, what did I miss? What are some of the other secrets that some higher level investors, they have cash, maybe they're in the single family game, maybe they have that portfolio, maybe they have the ability to refinance or sell off. I mean, the market is crazy in so many places right now where, maybe they can tap into some of those rental properties and cash out. What would you recommend they do with that money?
I mean, for me, I started, once I started looking at deals as far as what the cash flow was going to be to me, what the returns were. And I compared that obviously to the money that's sitting. I got very lucky because I invested in Colorado in, just right around the crash time. So I appreciated like gangbusters, but there wasn't anything, special about what I did. So that money was just kind of sitting there. But truly, it's just making zero. So I think that's another thing the wealthy really examine pretty closely is they say, well, if I have it here, this is what I'm making. If I have it here, I'm making this. I think people like me, before I changed my mindset, get very emotionally attached to this product, to this house. Oh, this is going to be my retirement. But you're not thinking of it as a business. They're constantly thinking of things as businesses, and what are the returns. So if you're seeing you're not getting a return on that money, then you can sell it and get into the syndication. Depending on what kind of syndication you can get a lot of write-offs that people, I know I have a lot of real estate agents that are in the residential game that are like, well, don't you want to do a 1031 or something like that? I'm just a big fan of getting the taxes out of the way and moving forward. But in a lot of these bigger syndication deals, we do things that are called cost segregation. And that just means that we speed up depreciation, put it on turbo, and you can write off a lot of that, just depending on who you end up working with. But you should have that discussion with them to see if that's an option, to bring over some of that cost segregation, depreciation, and that can offset, if they sell their house.
Sure. Yeah. And, I don't think a lot of people think about those things either. When they think about a syndication, they think hands off, I'm giving my money to someone else and I'm going to make some passive, but they don't think of the benefits of what could come from that as well.
Yeah. And just the communication. I mean, each company and each syndication, each team is different, but I think we're big fans of we communicate a lot and try to understand people's needs before they come into the project, to see if we can help them, if they're in a situation where they want some tax help, because they've sold a property or something like that.
Gotcha. So I'm going to take a sidebar here for a second, and I'm going to derail us a little bit from the wealth investing creation and all that kind of good stuff. And so you told me in the front end that you're looking to visit all the national parks with your son and your husband. How many have you been to, and how many do you have left to go to, and what's next on your list?
We have a lot. That's a pretty new
it's a new goal.
It's a new goal for us, because actually, being an insurance agent, I have a 6-year or 7. He just turned 7, and I tend to work a lot. And owning your own business, the last time I took a 2-week vacation was in 2006. Or I'm sorry, that was a week's vacation.
Oh,
so now that I've sold my business, I get all this freedom. And so I'm really I live in Colorado, so I've been to all the national parks here, but we're really looking forward to going to Utah and to Montana, and even in California, to start working through those national parks. I'm not sure that I'll get to all of them, but we have an RV and we're set to go this year.
I was just going to say, how many of them are there? There has to be hundreds. Right?
I would think, yeah, hundreds of them for sure. Yeah.
Nice. So do you have any big ones that are on the list, or is it just the goal to get through them?
I want to go to Glacier. I was in Yellowstone when I was a little kid, probably just like everybody, and I'd like to go through that one with my son again. And the Arches National Parks in Utah, I hear that some of the arches are starting to fall, so I'd like to get there to see those.
Nice. So Stephanie, what did I forget to ask you today?
I think you're pretty thorough. I'm just a big advocate of just kind of listening to what the wealthy do with their money and kind of following it. Syndications might sound like a big word, but it's really not. It's, exactly what I was explaining. They see a team of people. They like what you're doing, if that's self-storage. For us, it's usually largely commercial real estate. And you have a lot more accountability investing in somebody that you can pick up the phone and call, just like what you said about the client that can't call Elon Musk.
Yeah.
a lot more control. And I think your listeners are a lot smarter than they think they are. I think people kind of tend to push the money issues away without really being like, well, I'm just not smart enough to figure it out. That's not the case.
You know what? You read my mind. I was just going to say this, that there's so many great operators out there that don't give themselves a chance because they don't realize the opportunity that could be in front of them, whether it be multifamily, self-storage, whatever, commercial development, whatever bigger piece that could involve a syndication. And the reality of it is when you get your feet and you dip them in the water and you kind of get a feel for it and you start to realize that, I think what you said is so on point. Investors are looking for a great jockey, right? They want a good team. They want people they can communicate with. They want someone who shows that they have honesty and integrity, and they're going to go out there and do what they say they're going to do. And they're looking for people to invest their money into because there's only so many resources that they can trust. And so when they can find that spot, and then they find that great team, that great horse and jockey, and it all comes together, they're going to continue to invest. And so for those of you that are listening that are in that situation where maybe you have some money, maybe you have some equity, maybe you started building something up, don't be afraid to take that next step. Don't be afraid to level up and figure out what that next thing looks like for you. I get fearful for people to get stuck in the rat race, and the rat race could be the single family rat race, right?
Yeah.
It could be rental property, rat race, which you and I were both there for a long time.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I have one more that I have under contract that'll go in April. And then I sold one in November. And I can't tell you just the wait, like, especially here in Colorado, it gets cold and really, really got super cold a few weeks ago. And, you get that tension, like, are you going to get a call about something going on? And then I'm like, wait, I don't have to worry about that anymore. So that was a nice feeling.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, you really brought a lot of great content today, a lot of good education for our listeners. Where can people get a hold of you and learn more?
Oh, great. Yeah, you could go to my website, which is www.erbe, which is ERBE wealth.com. You can download. I have a little report that I created, and it's the 5 reasons that passive investing might be for you. On that website, you could also put, just, my phone number's on there if you'd like to set up some time to talk. I'd be happy to.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we'll also post the show links. The notes will have the link for the website and all that kind of good stuff. Everywhere we distribute that, I'll have your website as well. So Stephanie, I appreciate you taking the time to impart the wisdom today and help people build a legacy.
And it was a great conversation. Yes,
absolutely.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for being on.